I'm from Kenya, and so I'll just go ahead and do a very complete introduction of myself. Thanks again. My name is Oginga-Navigate. Born and brought up in Kenya, came to this country like so many other people amongst us as a graduate student, an international graduate student. And really want to thank Ihopee, Rose, for inviting me, and your board members for your persistence, and being part of the mission to save the world, to save a child, to contribute to the empowerment of women, to enable people to live healthy lives. And so thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank my family from very far, from Pambe. We have met as family in Chicago. They have family there, and I end up calling the family in Chicago my family, so your family, so it's really good to see you here. And everyone else, it's good to be here. I want to really just challenge us on one topic that I've been involved in as an educator. So I'll just go ahead and complete my introduction. I am a professor of industrial engineering at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where I've been very fortunate, and I say extremely fortunate, to serve as a mentor for young people for the past 12 years. And so my journey into mentorship might have begun much earlier than I knew. And I think all of us have a journey that Rose talked about. We could take the whole night to listen to each of our journey, which would be very valuable, because we get to know each other when we talk about our journeys. The few minutes I spent with him, I realized our journeys intertwine, and our journey happened to intertwine in Milwaukee as well as here somehow. And you know about the people from Kenya, so you say, okay, how far do you live from Kisii? I said, well, I border Kisii. And so that exactly is about listening to stories. And so I came to this country as an international student, a graduate international student. Rose, you want me to move something? Thank you. As a graduate international student, lest I hit it. As a graduate international student at the University of South Florida. And like Rose said, I was fortunate while I started my schooling there. At first I felt lost. I felt lost because in Kenya, I studied mechanical engineering. I got interested in this called industrial engineering just because I took one course called operations research. And my professor at the time in Kenya told me, if you're interested in this, unfortunately, you cannot get more of it in Kenya. And we have many majors that we need to have in Kenya, which we didn't have at the time. The good thing is I think we are having them now more. And so that started my quest for higher education. I turned out to end up in the University of South Florida just because they were the first ones to give me an assistantship, a teaching assistantship. So I get into this country, and in my first semester, I'm expected to know how to code in this interesting language called MATLAB. I had no idea. Second wake-up call. I get into this statistics class, and I realized that there are calculators that you feed them data, and they give you the regression line. Voila. was in this class, and yours truly was actually putting on those numbers, calculating the E-squared that we use to, draw the regression line. And I realized, oh my God, people finished that exam way before the 2 hours that was given. I didn't even get to complete that exam in 2 hours. Why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because I experienced what I feel my students experience today. The quest for belonging. Some of them come as international students. Some of them are as American as it can get. But some of them come from the rural parts of this country. They all quest for belonging. And so when Rose talked about a phone call that she made, I was working at the time, it's called the Institute on Black Life. And this institute just embodies what universities call multicultural centers or multicultural institutes, which are very important. Some people, opponents of them will say, why do you have to segregate students into multicultural centers? But there is an importance to it. The importance being, as an international, not just even as an engineering female student, I end up being in a class where it's either myself, if I'm fortunate, one other person. At graduate school, maybe it's better. But in undergraduate, we have young people who I hope my talk to you is going to finish at a very good note. Because yes, at the time, you found yourself as the only woman in engineering class. So these multicultural centers are extremely important. That at least in this space, when I'm coding MATLAB, I'm by myself. But at least in this multicultural center, I feel a sense of belonging. And so that's where when Rose says she made a phone call, I was actually just working as a front desk lady in the Institute of Black Matters when I ended up, either I answered the call or someone answered and looked for me. And I think we met 2 weeks thereafter. And so when I was at USF, I knew of some programs that were called Broadening Participation. There was a program called the Bridge to Doctorate. There was a program called the Louis Stokes Minority Participation. By the way, Louis Stokes was a congressman in the US. There was another program called the McNair program. Now, I would not have made it to be part of those programs. The reason being, and admittedly so, these programs are particularly to fund American citizens and permanent residents so that they can broaden participation of minority students and women in the STEM areas. And so even though I wasn't eligible, that did not make me not embrace them as part of my community. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because you either know a young woman or man or a young person in your household who are soon going to college. Let them know what resources are there. I wasn't part of the scholarship, but the scholarship holders became part of my community. And I was amazed. And so by the fact that when you give people opportunity, then you see the value, they thrive. And so the US in the 1980s had this Equal Opportunity Act that the Congress passed. And by the way, right now it's in question in the Supreme Court. So let's be open, let's listen to what's happening in the country. I think they had, the petitions by some student in Harvard and a university in Texas, where they said because of equal opportunity, my opportunity to be part of the education was taken away from me. So it's good to know what's going on. However, I am a proponent that there are people, students, identities that have not had that opportunity for a long time. And it's time to provide the opportunities for them. So this was the Congress Act in 1980, and it's the same act that has given money to these programs that I did not get the scholarship for, but the scholars provided community for me. And so knowing that these programs existed, I went on to Milwaukee, and yes, we had 70 degrees 2 days ago, but we know that that's just in passing. We'll get back to where we belong in 2 days, 30 degrees. So I went to Milwaukee, and on the first month of my arrival, I actually sought these programs. Now I was a professor. Why was I interested in these programs? I was interested in these programs because I knew what they meant for the students that I saw engaging in these programs. And so I've been part of the advising team for the Louis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation for about 12 years now. And I've had the opportunity to engage with students. And several things I've learned about my life as an advisor, and I think it probably resonates with most of you who are either mentors, coaches, parents, teachers. We all are advisors, brothers, sisters. 3 things that have resonated with me is, and I'll present 4 very short stories that will kind of summarize what I've learned as an advisor. Story number 1, I'll call her student A, has been my advisor, and I'm talking about it as if it's now, but no. This lady was my advisee, my mentee, probably about 6 years ago. And so student A is my advisee. I meet her along the hallways of campus on this particular day, and she looks very, very distraught. So I ask her what's going on. She says, my house was just set on fire yesterday by an arsonist. And so as an advisor at that point, I'm not only looking out for this student as a student in UWM, but I'm looking out for her as a person. And it takes empathy to be an advisor. And you kind of very quickly have to know what resources you have on campus. Of course, the first thing we are told is, I am not a counselor, by no means, but I have to make sure that she is engaging with a counselor. Long story short, student A is in a course that has 6 credit studios, long studios. If you've been an art major or an architecture major, this you may understand. So 6 credits is very, not quite difficult, but is engaging. And so the advice for this student A was, hey, how about you press on the brake for now? The semester is just beginning. I don't think you might. So I'm not quite telling her what to do, but I'm letting her hear herself and as we talk together. So student A, instead of dropping off of school, we sort of decide, okay, I'm going to engage with my minor, which was Africana Studies. Again, identity, she's an African-American woman. You don't want her to drop off of school because she's in a situation where if she drops off of school, she might just drop altogether. So my advice to our student A, engage with your minor, let's press on the brakes for your major, and then we will restart next semester. Currently, student A just graduated in her master's in the University of Columbia. So as an advisor, I've learned empathy. As an advisor, the second story here is student B, an African American man. I get to meet him as a kind of first year junior student. You look at student B's transcript and you know the first 2 years something was not right. The grades were just completely off. And if I were to, to paint a picture of this student, or maybe let me say it this way, if I were to understand this student from his transcript, I would have totally missed the point. Yes, so you can actually tell student B was completely struggling in his first 2 years. Again, finding purpose, finding community, not quite finding identity, but finding an environment that resonates with his identity, I would put it. And so, again, championing for this student to get a do-over. Usually universities have policies, and some policies says if it's in your major, you cannot take this class twice. Sometimes they'll say in the university, you cannot take this class 3 times. So as an advisor, again, it's empathy, but also learning. It's called intercultural learning. So I had to understand this student B from his cultural and a little bit of family dynamics so that I can advise him well. But this is the second thing. So the first one was empathy. The second one is intercultural awareness. And then the third one was student C, not a minority student. She is a white student, but from the rural part of Wisconsin. She is in my program, but this is in hindsight. She says, Dr. Otieno, you have no idea how my life was difficult in this university. I said, wow. By the way, we are meeting like a month ago because I need to write a letter of recommendation to grad school. I'm like, but why didn't you tell me before? And she said, because I didn't think that it was in my place to say it. Because she is a rural student, but then this program is for minority student, and I realized she actually was as minority as it can get in the engineering program. And so the third one is communication. I wish I had I thought I had communicated with her, but I wish I had communicated with her a lot earlier to know of her identity as a white student from rural America, and a female student taking mechanical engineering. Those are all identities that are crisscrossing, And so we need to really try to understand our mentees from that level. And so 3 things. The first one was empathy, the second one was intercultural awareness, the third one was communication. And I'm hoping that one thing I'm trying to learn today is to be a good mentor for the current generation of students. I'm trying to learn it. And I think we all as a community are trying to learn it. So in any circle of influence that you're in, if you have a young person that you're mentoring, try to know them more, because we see a lot of struggle at the university, and we wish we can have that community approach where I'm advising on this side, some parents somewhere is advising on this side, their academic advisor is advising on this side, and so somehow we are able to meet the student according to their passion and according to their goals. So thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, and I'm thankful.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much. Looking at our time, I think we have to move.
Thank you, Rose. Several years ago, my wife and I were at a convention where Bill Gates was the speaker. And despite all of the incredible technology, we watched, of all people, Bill Gates pull a piece of paper out of his pocket to give his presentation. So I'm not going to feel the least bit guilty that I don't have anything on an iPad or my phone or anything else. Several months ago, when Rose asked me if I'd speak tonight, I really wondered why me. Actually, what I really thought was, why would Ihopee want a middle-aged white dude who's never been to Kenya to come and speak to the organization? But instead, I just politely asked Rose, what would you like me to speak about? And I'm not sure that I understood everything that she said, but it was pretty clear she wasn't going to let me get out of it. And she did point out the fact that, as she's already mentioned, Rose and I are both members of Rotary International and the Rotary Club of Fishhawk Riverview. And while I am definitely not the best person to articulate the needs and opportunities in Kenya, as I begin my 34th year as a Rotarian, I'm reasonably qualified to highlight some of the milestones and best practices of Rotary International, the Rotary Foundation, and our Rotary Club of Fishhawk Riverview. The origins of Rotary date back to 1905, when a young attorney in Chicago thought to try to somehow replicate the honesty with which business was conducted in a small town he had grown up in the late 1800s in Wallingford, Vermont. Attorney Paul Harris invited 3 of his friends, each from different backgrounds and different vocations, to meet to discuss how they might share this interest of doing honest business with each other. They rotated whose offices they were going to meet in each week, and the idea of Rotary was born. The original premise was that we're going to all pledge ourselves to the highest ethics and integrity in our business. We're going to, almost like a business networking group, transact business with each other. And the idea caught on very quickly, and what even in 1905 was a very bustling, very, at times, disingenuous, difficult, and cutthroat place to do business, Chicago, Illinois. Perhaps some things never change. Rotary historians debate how did Rotary actually transition to service? What was the first project? And the fact is that in 1907, just a couple years into the first Rotary Club, the Rotary Club of Chicago, someone said that a friend of theirs who was a traveling minister out in the country outside of Chicago, his horse had died. And that meant that he could not tend to the country churches or the more distant parishioners. And very quickly, Rotarians in Chicago all ponied up, so to speak, some money, and they quickly raised enough money to replace this traveling minister's horse. And just the feeling of service, the people realized, oh my goodness, when we bring people of business and industry together with diverse backgrounds and unique vocations, and maybe just as importantly, people of unique resources, we can really make a difference. And that inspired them to begin looking for service opportunities. So that same year, founder Paul Harris happened to be at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he overheard people discussing the need for public bathrooms, or comfort stations as they were called, in downtown Chicago. And at the time, if you were a male, you went into a bar, or you went into an alley, or you just found the side of a building. If you were a female, it was extremely difficult, unless you were spending money in a department store, to find a public restroom. And thus, it was difficult to keep people downtown and patronizing the businesses. So Rotarians got together, and because they tended to be not only resourceful but well-connected, they were able to procure a $20,000 grant for the first official Rotary project to build comfort stations or public bathrooms in downtown Chicago. And they remained for decades. 117 years since that club was founded. Today, 1.4 million Rotarians are part of over 40,000 Rotary clubs in 200 different countries and geographical regions. Rotary exists pretty much everywhere in the free world, and honestly, it's underground in some places in the not-so-free world. The mission of Rotary International is to provide service to others, to promote integrity and advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through our fellowship of business, professional, and community leaders. The Rotary Foundation, which has a story all to itself for another day, has expanded to concentrate in 7 areas of focus: peace and conflict resolution, disease prevention and treatment, maternal and child health, clean water and sanitation, economic and community development, basic education and literacy, and most recently, environmental protection. Coincidentally, I read an article just this morning about a combined Rotary and United Nations Environment Program where they had the first phase of their Adopt a River program had removed nearly 150 tons of waste from roughly 20 kilometers of rivers in Kenya and Ethiopia. And yet with all of this progress, Rotary remains 1.4 million members, a group of citizens, each with different backgrounds, skills, and resources, all of good character, and all pledged to the highest ethical and moral standards. Charity Navigator, the online service that evaluates charities for their stewardship and responsibility with handling public funds, consistently rates the Rotary Foundation 4 stars, and our model for donations, in which contributions are held in escrow for 3 years, and the earnings are used to pay a majority of administrative and fundraising expenses, means that those expenses are minimal and ensures that nearly all contributions to the Rotary Foundation go directly to our benevolent programs. Responsibility is critical, as you can imagine, when annual fundraising for the Rotary Foundation is closing in on $500 million, and yes, that's billion with a B. This astounding figure does not take into account millions of volunteer hours that Rotarians donate each year to a staggering number of service projects. The largest single initiative that Rotary has undertaken has been our decades-long quest to eradicate polio from the face of the earth. Our progress includes the 2020 declaration of a polio-free continent of Africa. And despite recent flare-ups around the world that our response has been very aggressive to deploy additional vaccine and resources, right now only Afghanistan and Pakistan remain endemic polio countries. Through the Rotary Foundation, Rotarians lead global and local sustainable projects all over the world, not only improving the lives of people today, but also ensuring a better life for their children and grandchildren. With a general administrative structure, individual Rotary clubs enjoy tremendous autonomy to identify community needs and decide how they want to prioritize and engage. Rose and I, as I've mentioned, are both members of the Rotary Club of Fishhawk Riverview. That club was chartered just over 20 years ago, and our mission is as follows. Promoting the Rotary ideal of service above self, we pursue the alleviation of poverty, illiteracy, hunger, and disease. We are committed to the highest standards of leadership and integrity in serving our local and world communities. We achieve the greatest impact through membership engagement, education, fellowship, and of course, fun. Our club foundation practices have evolved over the years, but we've always remained focused on service and integrity. We have no paid staff. We all pay our own way. 100% of club operating expenses come directly from membership dues. We consider donations to the Rotary Foundation as a duty of membership. All of our members contribute at least $100 a year to the Rotary Foundation, and many give more. We also recognize our responsibility as stewards of community-raised funds. 100% of proceeds from public fundraising events go to our charitable activities, and the vast majority of them, if the money is raised locally, we contribute locally. Our contributions to the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International, the majority of those we spend internationally. Our money gets allocated through our club foundation, which is a registered 501c3. And through the years, we've given over 100 college scholarships to local graduating high school seniors, passed out dictionaries to fourth graders in schools throughout our area, supported Rotary's Camp Florida, a program called Rotary's Seminar for Tomorrow's Leaders, S4TL, which is a week-long leadership development program for high school juniors between their junior and senior year. A Kids Place, Meals on Wheels, Faces of Courage, Brandon Outreach Center, Ruskin Firehouse Cultural Center, ECHO, YMCA, and the Florida Society of Oncology Foundation. And more than 100 years after the Rotary Club of Chicago built comfort stations as the first major Rotary project, it's only fitting that our Rotary Club of Fishhawk Riverview's largest project to date was a Foundation Global grant to provide 117 engineered latrines, or comfort stations if you prefer, as part of a larger ongoing health and clean water initiative in Comayagua, Honduras. And of course, we're proud to support Ihopee. In recent years, our club has provided funding to help ship the books that Rose mentioned. We also provided funding to furnish a girls' school in Kenya with desks, chairs, and beds. And this year we partnered with Ihopee and the Weiss Scholarship Foundation to send the boy and girl to 4 years of high school with hand-picked mentors. Many of us have witnessed the joy on a young person's face when they're blessed to receive a scholarship, or the relief of a mother to learn that her baby will be blessed to have clean drinking water, or maybe the thrill of an impoverished family as they are blessed to gaze upon a newly constructed home, the first shelter they've ever had. But I submit to you that we are the blessed ones, for we've been given the strength, the resources, and the freedom and the motivation to serve others. Surely there can be no greater blessing. Who can predict what the whole future holds in store for us? I'm sure that Paul Harris many years ago could never have imagined Rotary becoming the amazing and incredible organization that it is today. In 1935, he said, "This is a changing world, and we must be prepared to change with it." Rose, I want to thank you for inviting me to share our Rotary story today. I want to thank the people of Ihopee for their work to improve the lives of people in Kenya and here in the United States. And I want to thank everyone here today for all that you do to make the world a better place for us, for people in need, and of course for our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Now you guys know I insisted that this young man comes over here.
Showed up today. Also, our very own chef, Miss Corny. She is a Quitu member who came all the way from Houston. We love you, girl. Thank you so much for showing support. With that said, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much again, Rose, for having us. We appreciate, we love you, and we keep doing what you're doing. It's very much needed in the community.
A little bit, and
it's exercise time. After eating, you better run, otherwise all the food will stay there, and then you fall sick. As in the medical field, you'll be like, dang, he's back again. So please do the exercise as you can. I want to take this opportunity before our two great guests come on. Remember, all our guests are special and are wonderful. They have something to give. I would like to let you know that Ihopee does what is called awareness. Awareness in healthcare, awareness investment, awareness economic factor, awareness in human rights. Me and Mary Kim, who just left, we were fortunate enough to be honored by the human rights. That dove you see there is a symbol of human rights. In 2020, we got an award for human rights educator. And we were also fortunate enough to get privacy and security teaching from their community. So there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to get that will improve us. Taking this opportunity to say that we had intended to do an award. I just realized some of my certificates are not there. I'm just wearing a cool face. I'm like, dang. So, allow me to say this, and then guess what? My phone is dead. What in the world? But it reminds me when I was a teacher for over 15 years, you don't need all those gadgets. You better teach. And the students must pass. Otherwise, you won't have your job. So I would like to take this opportunity before a few guests come on. We are very proud of each and every volunteer. You here is a volunteer. Thank you. You volunteer in so many ways. One of our greatest volunteers that is here is Miss Ann here. Ann Orwa. Did she leave? Anyhow, Miss Ann Orwa was able to support our good friend Zane from all the way to Houston, paid her ticket over here. Who does that? That in itself is volunteering. We could have had any other food, but this food is so special to Ihopee because it brings the Kenyan together, it brings different communities together, it allows us to learn different cultures. So it is more of community outreach that my friend Zane uses it to remind herself of what her mother was doing then, what her grandmother did. Remember, our story, our journey has something in it. So I will just tabulate the names. I want to recognize the honorees at this time. We do have some of us here. I will select a few and then I'll sit back. Remember, my certificates are not there, but I know who they are. Our first lady that we're gonna call out is none other than Miss Tenai Ruth. Ruth is
here in Tampa, Florida, and Rose is we're kind of like neighbors. And Rose, she has been my friend for some time now, since I came to Tampa in 2013 when I met her. And in fact, actually, I think even when she started Ihopee, we started also around the same time when I started my organization. And so it kind of like we worked this journey together, and she's doing an amazing job. You know, building what she's trying to do or doing what she's trying to do is not that easy. And since personally, I being a business person and you know, someone who is trying to build communities and helping people, it's not that easy. So Rose, you are doing an amazing job, and thank you very much for your work within the community. Now, for me, I'll try to be very brief. I'll give you a little bit of my story, and hopefully maybe it will be something that can be able to inspire most of you. Well, I came to the US as a student, as an international student. So when I heard about the professor here talking about being an international student, I understand very well, because I came as an international student. Then graduated, you know, I was finding it's very hard to get a job. You know, those kind of challenges when you come as a student on F1. But somehow I was able to figure things out, and I got a job as as a systems analyst. In fact, actually, I came to Tampa in 2013 to come and work for Citibank as a senior systems analyst for them. Then I worked there for about 5 years. In 2017, I decided, okay, enough was enough, and I really wanted to do something. And that's when I started my organization, which was, we started as a technology consulting firm that helps mostly African immigrants to find job opportunities in the tech space. Because I realized when I got into the tech industry, mostly people that I was working with were mostly Asians, Indians in particular. And I really wanted to help our people, and that's really why I started my organization. So, we started doing IT job skills training programs and placement services. And at some point, I was getting a lot of challenges in terms of getting the right candidates for our programs, and I started thinking of I thought of maybe since I was getting a lot of challenges getting the right candidates for our programs, I thought of how could I find bright people within our community to actually get into the opportunities that we have here in the US. So around that time I started thinking about it, and some idea came of actually trying to get bright people from Kenya, and that was in 2018, early 2018. So I thought about it and I was like, how do I bring people from Kenya, bright ones, to come and take advantage of the opportunities that are here? So I thought about it, and since I came as an international student and I had gone through that path, I knew very well that it's a very challenging path. It's very hard for most of our people out there, bright Kenyans or bright Africans, to be able to come here. It's quite expensive for you to study here in the US. And also the process of coming, also getting visas and stuff like that, it's quite a challenge. I personally was denied visa 4 times before I got here. So I knew it was really, really hard for a lot of people. So I thought about it and I was like, I think I can solve those problems. And we started something called the Kenya Airlift Program. And this is a program that helps mostly Kenyans to come to the US regardless of their financial background. We've been in existence since 2018. In fact, actually, when we started that program, we just enrolled only 3 students into the program. Just 3. Just to show you how tough it can be when you start something. And from 3, then, we went to 12 in 2019 when COVID came. Then 2020 we did around 60 students. 2021 we did around 300 and something. And as we speak today, the Kenya Airlift Program has over 1,300 students. Right now you're on countdown to about 1,500 students in the program. And thank you. And this year we've, because normally what we do is we help them with the funding, because it's very hard to get it's very hard to get money to come and study here. So behind the scenes, we are funded by an organization called Empower Financing. And this year we processed over $5 million in terms of student loans. And these are, this is money that a lot of students out there in Kenya would not have really been able to raise. And as we speak, currently, we are expecting to bring over 200 students in January in the US. Thank you very much. And in fact, actually, the gentleman that you see here, his name is Wilfred, he's one of the beneficiaries of the program. He's actually the first student to believe in me when I met him. And I went to Kenya in 2018, and currently he actually runs the program. He's our business development manager. So Wilfred, maybe you can wave to the rest of the... Yeah, so he believed in what we were trying to do those early days when really no one was believing in us. Yeah, so that's what we do. I run the Kenya Airlift Program. We basically what we are trying to do, we are trying to build a community of brilliant Kenyans who can do some amazing things here in the US. And also we just recently also started something to do with green card lottery, because also we realize a lot of our people win the green card, but actually they are not really able to relocate here because it's very costly. Sometimes you find people win green cards and then they are not actually able to find hosts, you know. And even if they find a host also, you know, hosting someone, because I hosted someone who had come from Kenya with their family, it's not that easy, you know. So also that program also we support them. So those who win the green card, we want to build a community, especially here in Tampa. So whoever wins green cards in our community, then we bring them over. They don't have to worry about the relocation cost. They don't have to worry about where they're gonna get the hosts. They don't have to worry about how they're gonna get the money for accommodation and things like those, how to get jobs. So that's also part of what we do. So we just started that program just last month because the green card lottery is just closing in the next 3 days. And we've just enrolled about 300 people into the program. Hopefully a few of them will need the green card and we'll be able to relocate them here in the US. So basically what we do is something very similar to Rose, although for us we are not really a non-profit, but still it's something that impacts people's lives, because for every person that we bring from Kenya to here in the US, that person, once we bring them over, they're gonna be able to support a lot of people back home. I always think that if you're able to help just one person, you're basically helping the whole village. And that's really our mantra, and that's really what we want to do. And for you, Rose, we're gonna be supporting you, even as we try to build our community also. I really want to see a lot of Kenyans around here, really bright Kenyans, through the Kenya Lift program. And I can foresee, for example, probably in the next 5 years or so, you're going to be having thousands of Kenyans here, especially here in Tampa. Because right now in the Kenya Lift program, our growth is about 500% per year. We are currently enrolling about 100 students a month in the program. Yeah, and it seems like it's going to get better. So we really expect a big community of Kenyans around, especially around the Tampa Bay area in the next 5 years. So Rose will be supporting you, and hopefully I hope will have grown also, because I know the journey that we've walked together, me and you, when we started those early days in 2017. As I said, 2018 we only had 3 students who enrolled into the program, and right now we are talking about thousands of students. So this journey is not that easy, but I really want to encourage you to keep working hard, keep doing what you are doing, and God will bless you. You're gonna get where you want to be. Thank you very much.
All right, now I call upon Professor Otieno.
And especially Ms. Rose, and I hope an organization that really has become a great part of my life. And it's really interesting how God just works things out. And today what I would like to do is kind of take you through a journey of how you can actually build your vision from ground up. And the vision and the topic of today is around service and giving. My goal today is by the end of this presentation or this conversation, you can at least walk away with a few tools that can help you go really lead a life of impact. At Keller Williams Realty, we have a saying that money is only good for the good that it can do. So if you're making a lot of money and it's not doing a lot of good in your community, locally in the United States, or for those of us that are from Africa or other countries in the world, then sometimes you wonder what's going on. I'm going to give you some tips of how I built a life of service from when I was very young. So I'm going to give you a brief history of myself. I was born and raised in Kenya, Eldoret, Kenya, the home of champions. I always plug that all the Olympic runners come from my hometown, 99.9% of them. But I was raised with literally probably 15 miles away from Route 10I and not so far from Tina. But we kind of grew up, I can't say I was really middle class, but if there was, I always say there was a video of a Kenyan child walking to school with one pair of shoes, maybe one of them had a hole and one pair of uniform. I actually was that child. I know a lot of people say, I'm from Kenya, I'm from Africa. I went through hardship, and I'm like, yeah, I actually did that, right? And yet, I don't focus on that part of my history because to me, that is where God grew me and developed me. So my day job is I own a Keller Williams Realty franchise. I get to wake up every single day and serve about 200 agents. And I can sit here and give you such amazing statistics. We are actually on track this year to probably get close to our number 5,000 family since 2017 when I got into real estate. So we are really, really close to serving 5,000 families in those years. And I mean, that's a lot of families. It's not a house, it's not an investment property, it's a family, it's children, it's legacies, it's generational wealth. And yet, our brokerage and my company was solely built to serve people. And not to serve people. Real estate is just a vehicle that we get to do it, but we truly are very engaged with our local community, and we also engage with our international community. See, the beauty of our brokerage is I have 90% of the realtors in my brokerage are actually multicultural, and that's a fancy way of saying they're immigrants. And we represent over 30 countries, speak more than 20 languages. We have realtors from all over the world. So my vision was to build that brokerage very intentionally, knowing that all I wanted to do was grow go-givers. And it's just been such an amazing journey, the work that we do. We do a lot of work. We engage, and I serve on more of a mentorship platform for go-givers throughout the United States and the world that do good in so many parts of the world that you're not even aware. And Rose always makes fun of me because we're very secretive and we don't really take any credit. Anything you see me sharing on social media is because my children told me one time, especially my 23-year-old Brianna, that mommy, you have an amazing story and you've got to tell that story because it's very inspirational. So I've come a little bit more intentional to sharing the things that I do. So that's a little bit about myself. Within the Go Giver world, we have some of the most phenomenal people, from actually young children to very, very successful business people in the United States. And we have projects everywhere. We have a Rotary project in Madagascar. It was really good for me to hear from you and what you and Rose does, because the Rotary does a lot. As you guys know, I'm very passionate about all things Africa, especially Kenya. So all the projects we do in the world, 80% of them are in Africa, and then of the 80% in Africa, 90% of them are in Kenya. So we have so many schools. It doesn't matter what part of Kenya you come from. I have actually worked with somebody in your local community at projects. We do schools. We champion the rights of women and the girl child mostly. We also do support initiatives. We have schools. We build many schools, churches, libraries, hospitals, and we typically just give those back to the government or the local communities. We don't do anything to make any money. I don't have a registered, I think this is one of the most misunderstood part of me. People think I have an NGO that's a tax flow through or something. I really don't. I intentionally said I would never do that because I never wanted my service or giving for the people I work with to have any kind of financial significance and impact in the businesses that I run. So we have projects in Haiti, we drill water. We have projects in Venezuela, Colombia. We have a young lady, one of my favorite young ladies, go-givers, that I've mentored over the years, and we have some projects around business development and teaching in Malawi. We have projects everywhere. Kenya, we just have so many projects. I got just kind of recruited into a project just from yesterday where we're going to be donating blankets to the elderly in Nyandarua. And also there's a need, believe it or not, there's not been rains in Kenya. So we're looking at ways to gather bales of grass for wild animals that are dying in the park. So that was one of my latest ones. So everything I'm going to share with you briefly is actually not my own content. I challenge you to go to YouTube and find a video of TD Jakes. It's about an hour and 18 minutes. Go to YouTube. It says how to build your vision from the ground up. That video would actually give you a lot of the tools you're looking for if you're looking to serve people. He breaks it down just so beautifully. I took so many notes. I listened to that hour 18. I rewinded it. I stopped it. I paused it. I wrote some things in it because I really thought it was one of the most phenomenal videos on how to build a life of giving that is very intentional. anytime we're not hitting a business goal or a family goal, I actually look at myself in the mirror and say, Ogla, who have you not given something to in the world that needs you? So I do crazy things. I write big checks for organizations I don't even know. If I see something posted on Facebook about a church somewhere in rural Kenya, I will inbox the pastor and I will send them money. And sometimes my family, and when I go to Kenya, tell me, oh, that person came to look for you 3 months ago, because I said, who's that? And somehow, yeah, you helped us do this. And I don't do that because I want to track it. I'm just sharing with you that your success, your personal success, that of your family and your community, is tied back to your ability to give back to somebody that's in need. Anywhere in the world, locally here in the United States, there's a lot of need. We have a lot of projects in the United States, in Orlando, and different parts of the country to serve people. So I grew up in an environment where the focus of the conversation was on our limitations, right? You guys know the typical African home. Now it's a little bit more advanced. Our parents are actually in technology and Facebook, so they kind of have an open-minded conversation with now our younger generation. But typically when we grew up, it was more a conversation on environments of our limitations, and it wasn't really about what we could achieve or this bigger life. And yet I remember watching Oprah Winfrey on a little TV that was locked most of the time. And I was just, wow, this lady is just phenomenal. And she talked about the Oprah Angel Network and all those things. And I was like, now that is who I'm going to be, right there. Because I saw somebody that grew a big organization, a big influence all over the world by focusing on helping other people. I never knew that the way people describe you would become a prison until it did. And I remember, I think I was in standard 7, and I was in some situation, coming from a broken family, and somebody within my family saying, in their words, God bless them, they're saved now, that girls were never really intended to do anything but get married, have children, some kind of thing. And I remember thinking that day, that would never be me. Absolutely me, not gonna be me. So, I just knew that God had a bigger purpose for me in this life. And even growing up in that village, I just knew that if I could just work a little bit smarter, work a little bit harder, just every single day put a foot forward as I was walking in that wet dew in cold morning, and it's freezing, right? And my mama strapped my 5-year-old youngest sister on my back to take her to my grandmother's house, drop her off there, Gogorayal's house, Ruth, and then walk from there and go to Lemok Primary School. And it was my job in nursery school to go back to my grandmother's house, Gogoray, pick her up and bring her back home. Now, this child was not very light. So most of the time, I'm so glad her brain is intact, but I actually dropped her quite a few. I never told my mom that. People ask me, when did you decide not to be limited? When did you know when you were capable to do more? I don't know. I don't know when. I just knew that I didn't want to be average. I wanted my story to be so much more bigger. I knew there was a better life. I just envisioned it in my brain. I knew that if I just prayed hard and if I just cried to God every single day, just relentless, and yet I had a great work ethic, I just knew I could outrun, outpace, and out-succeed everybody in front of me. And that mindset is what got me where I am today, and what has enabled our world to be so big so we can help impact and change a lot of lives. So, briefly, just to kind of give you a synopsis of what that looks like, is 80% of your success is in your mindset. It's actually in your mindset. It's proven, there's studies about that. The story you tell yourself about your capability, your capacity, or lack thereof, is actually in your brain. That's why you meet great people like Bob or Rose, but how do they do it? They just have this mindset that we are more capable than we limit ourselves to be. You are a child of God, meaning if you are created in His image, then by God, it is in you. You just have not tapped in it hard enough. Because if you just did that, something so phenomenal will come out of you. And you might just shock and surprise yourself. As you evolve as a person, don't let what people tell you or the environment. Be very careful with the circle that you keep. The circle that that you keep could be holding you back from the potential that God has given you, not because of malicious people. It's just that environment. If you remove yourself from that environment, you actually open yourself intentionally some possibilities of having your mindset expanded, and then comes the possibilities, right? When you sit across from millionaires and you listen to them, they hardly talk about money, they talk about purpose. They talk about why they do what they do and why that is important. All of you have a God-given capacity, and then you just have to figure out how to go through that ceiling that's holding you back. You're so successful in so many avenues on what you can do. In 2020, when the pandemic happened and Kenya was shut down and they say schools would be closed for a year, you know, a lot of people were like, okay, and people got frozen. And then people like myself and Rose are on the phone saying, wait a minute, the girl child pregnancy rates in Kenya, 1 out of 33 children in Kenya, girls in Kenya, is impregnated before the age of 15. 10 years impregnated rate. And our panic that time was with schools being closed and churches being closed. Probably the only two places they could be safe from people, even within their own families, that could hurt them, molest them, or even just these children. The thought of these children just being out there freaked us completely out. So we got together a small group. We created a strategy of how we were going to get information out and cry out for the gold child. We found a song somewhere on YouTube from a girl in Uganda, and we were sharing it all over the place. And then we decided that we knew we could not go to Kenya to physically talk to these girls, give them, you know, we were gathering sanitary pads and care kits. So we decided that we were going to build zones in Kenya, and we got to about 26 zones, and then we developed leaders within those zones, a lot of them young people, people like Irene, and then we gave them the strategy, the speeches, what to do. I got with my people in Eldoret, we got to Rivertex, they gave us thousands and thousands of masks, so we put a message on there, and then we created the material, the presentations, and this core group went to 26 regions in Kenya, and all of a sudden we touched over 20,000 young people. Now remember, these young people that were leading these groups were actually in violation of the laws of COVID-19 in Kenya. They were not supposed to be moving or gathering. We had to literally limit groups to 50, meaning in Ukambani, when we talked to Jennifer, we had to make sure Jennifer understood it can be 50 or less, and yet we have to do 4 or 5 to hit 200 or 500. And yet it was just, we did it on a Google Drive. We tracked everybody that we're talking to, and we created champions like Jennifer and Irene and everybody else, and all of a sudden we're in the news and we're protesting, and we used our influence with some really influential people. And then the government of Kenya called an emergency parliament meeting session to come up with rules on how they were going to protect young girls. And we don't know if we saved, how many girls we saved. We just know we did something different, and we made a difference in Kenya. There's nothing I have, or Rose has, or Bob, or everybody here that you don't have, right? You can only be fruitful if you're seedful. A fruit comes from a seed. So if you're planting the seed of service, being a service person, being a giver, then they can only be a fruit on the other side, right? And if you cultivate what God has planted inside of you, then you get grounded in that structure. You start building it into your resume, into what you do every single day in your job, and then your conversations start changing, because a lot of you are in leadership in your organizations, whether it's healthcare or education, and there's a chance you're sitting in a boardroom or in a room of influence, and your organization, which is typical in the United States, actually have funding dedicated to helping the community. Why do they do that? A lot of it is for tax sheltering, right? So if you just ask the right questions to the people of influence in your organization, a lot of you have organizations that can give you $50,000 right now. Now, if you hit them up in December before they close the books of the year, that's when they give you the most amount of money. Because they have to close the year and they have to demonstrate that they're giving back. So go back to your organization, talk to somebody in HR or in a department that has influence, and ask those questions. And one of the things that I love about Kenya is I saw a statistic that came out the other day. We have a new CS or whatever for the diaspora. And there's a number, they say that Kenyans outside of Kenya remitted 400 billion Kenya shillings to the economy. And he said there's a goal to grow that to 1 trillion Kenya shillings. Think about it this way, and I want you to write this down and really go put some thought into it. If 10%, what is 10% of 400 billion? How much? 40? B. 40 billion. Right? Close to that? 10%? 4 billion? Maybe 4 billion? 40, right? If we're running the economy of Kenya at 400 billion shillings, and we just dedicated 10% of that to giving back to your local community where you grew up, why can we not change the trajectory of our country? There is no solutions for people of Africa that does not require you, the African, to solve it. Nobody is coming. If I did the math here of all your salaries today, how much money do you think we earn in this room? We cannot let our children in Africa suffer. We cannot let our future generation not have education or opportunity because we are capable. We just have to change our mindset about it, right? Can I tell you something? I was speaking to a billionaire the other day. It was 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh my God, he's in front of me. Oh my God. You know when you say you meet Bill Gates or somebody, what are you going to say? I said, what am I going to say? And I say, stupidly, how did you become a billionaire? And he started laughing. And he said, well, wow, how long do we have? And he said, I just gave so much money away. I was like, well, I kind of do that. I started laughing, right? If you are not hitting all your goals, it's completely tied to your ability to give to somebody else, to help somebody else that need you. My whole life is grounded on giving, not just money, time, resources, talents, and also network. Your network is the most powerful way to create a world of giving. The people around you are so good. I was talking to a gentleman one time in South Africa. We were speaking at a conference in South Africa. And we're just talking about, what do you do? And he said, oh, I have a nonprofit, and we typically fly our private planes to like Haiti. He's from like Iowa, to Haiti, and we go and volunteer and we work there. And I said, why Haiti? He said, oh, I don't know. I just looked up on the map, I saw the news, and I just felt a calling from God to go do that. They've been doing that for so many years, and even with the war that's going on in Haiti and the problems they're having, they're still out there doing good work to help people. So it's just somebody that's really being purposeful and intentional. You have the seed inside of you. Some of you just have a dormant seed. What do you do with a seed when it's not growing? You water it. So your environment, the books you read, the places you go. This event that you came to today, you just watered your seed because you just went internal, right? And reflected on the things that you can do. Now, I have this very simple thought as a child of a farmer, that when you're growing corn in Kenya, you have to put sulfate and you have to put fertilizer and you have to do that. So when you leave this room today, go find your fertilizer. It could be a book. You can start with a book called Go Givers. It's actually a book. We just copy what the Go Givers did. The Go Givers book will give you a framework of how you can do that. We are all sitting here, but do you know who's sitting next to you? Your ancestors. You might not see them, you might have never met them. They're sitting here with you and they're looking at you right now. And whether you are in Kisii or Eldoret or Mombasa or Kisumu or Machakos or Kiambu, your ancestor is looking at you because they probably did not have freedom, or they came back and they were colonized by the British and they couldn't get an education. And they're now looking at you saying, this is my great-great-great-grandson or granddaughter. I wonder what they're doing with their life, because they can also see parts of where we come from, some of the hardships that people have. So, especially coming from the Kalenjin community, that's very important to us. Like, we need to honor our ancestors, and we need to honor our spiritual ancestors. We need to honor the God that brought you here and positioned you in the United States. I want you to know that when you take these tools, you read the book and you do all the things I just shared with you, you're going to fail. People are going to disappoint you. I've been betrayed in the most insane ways by people that I trusted with money, my time, my mentorship, and it can break you when you're just like, wow, like I sacrificed that, or I rearranged things, or I spent that time because I really thought you were a good person. Never, ever, ever get angry or judge. Your work was not to go and verify. Your work was just to give and to be the person of resources. So don't take that personally. Fail enough so you can learn. So some of the things we do in Africa is we now have structured ways where I help you write a memorandum of understanding with a local community, make sure they connect to a chief or somebody of accountability. And I also make sure that when you're doing any projects all over the world, it's almost like a 50-50 contribution from the local community. So there's like skin in the game for some of the things they do. You actually do more good that way by holding them accountable for every dollar that you remit. The local village can come together and actually